Welcome everyone to our Satsang. Thank you, Priya, for joining us today. Priya has been an educator for many, many decades, working with the Charter Forest School in California, and she's now directing the Sharing Nature worldwide. She's a minister, meditation teacher, a mama, just a beautiful soul. So it's such a joy that she gets to be here today and share her experience and the things she's learned in her time working with children and nature education. So Priya, you can take it away, and everyone feel free to ask questions along the way. So we have a beautiful discussion.
Well, Gayatri, thanks so much for inviting me, and it's really a joy to be with all of you. There's nothing more important than our children, our families, and how do we create an environment that really cultivates that harmony and peace and fun. Fun is a very important part of what we do as parents, and I'm a grandparent now, so uh, I'm getting to go back and find those old books that I want to read to my little girl. She's now going to be 7. And I just want to add something at the very beginning, Gayatri, that you see that picture of Peter, Gayatri's husband. Well, Keith and Peter were classmates back in 4th grade at Ananda Village. And Peter used to come to the house, knock on the door, pick Keith up in the morning he had his little lunch pail, and off they'd walk to school. And it was just he was such a sweet little guy. I want to just say too, one thing that I remember, I was thinking about it this morning, that about Peter. Every night before putting Keith to bed, we used to do a couple things. One was music, because as you know, music is something that really can elevate that vibration, that frequency of uplifting music is so important to our children. So Keith and I would always he played the violin. He was actually pretty accomplished violin, won Music in the Mountains actually 2 times when we were at Ananda. But I taught him how to play the harmonium, and then I played the guitar. So we would do simple chants like listen, listen, and it just set the mood for bedtime. And then we would talk about qualities. What are the qualities? You'll find them in Swami's affirmation book. And we would pick a quality for that week. And I remembered this one week, the quality was even-mindedness. So I said, well, Keith, who do you think of when you think of someone who's even-minded? Who reflects that quality? And he said, oh, Peter Kretzmann. I never forget that. It was, and Pete, and it really is, even to this day, if anybody's had a chance to meet Peter, he just reflects even-mindedness and joy, of course, too. So I just wanted to start with that story because it's a personal one, and it was such a positive environment to bring Keith to when he was 9 years old. So anyway, and Lise, I want to welcome you. I don't see you, but I don't know if I'm kind of trying to find out who's on board here. And um, where are you from? And where do you, and how many children do you have? If you're able to get on.
Yeah, hi. I was in the kitchen. It's a bit noisy in there. So I am based in Belgium, and I'm a Caribbean, and I was a teacher for 14 years, and I have become a godmother. So I don't have children of my own, but I have spiritual responsibility for my goddaughter when she becomes a little older, and so I'm preparing for that job.
They're very lucky to have you, Lise.
Thank you. And I hope to have children of my own one day, but that is in God's hands.
Yes. Well, thank you for joining us. It's really nice to meet you. Oh, and we've got Caitlin. Caitlin, are you on yet? Can you share where you're from and if you have children, how old they are? And she might be in the kitchen too.
I am in the kitchen. Hi, I'm Caitlin, and I have Wyatt, who is 4, and James, who is 7.
Wonderful, wonderful. And where are you from, Caitlin?
I'm from Folsom, California. I'm about like an hour and a half from Ananda Village.
Wonderful. Oh, good. You're not that far from me. Just to let all of you know, I'm in Truckee, California, which is the High Sierras, 6,700 feet. We just had snow last week. That's that's why I asked you if there was snow in Minnesota yet. But we have a beautiful day out today, which means I'm going to go for either a bike ride or a nice hike. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later because I want to talk to you a little bit more about how we can really cultivate real sensitivity, intuition, connection through nature. And as Gayatri mentioned, I'm serving now as the International Director for Sharing Nature Worldwide and have the blessing to be working with its founder, Joseph Cornell, who his spiritual name is Bharat, and he's lived and served in the village for 50 years, I think. He's an old timer. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. But let me go ahead then and talk a little bit about my past because it'll give you a context of how I got to where I am now. Um, actually, my childhood, when I was 8, my family moved to Peru. Now that was 1957, and there were only propeller planes that could take you down there. So it took us 3 days to get to Peru. We lived in Lima a year and then up in the high Andes, at which time there was no phone, there was no radio, there was no that kind of entertainment. So our entertainment was animals. And we lived up about 9,000 feet. It was very arid, saguaro cacti. We lived in temporary housing. My dad was working for a construction company that was building a railroad that went up from the port town of Ilo to the high Andes, where there was a mine, a copper mine. So I think it was very much an informative time for me because living in another culture and beginning to really understand that there are many right answers, many ways of living, many ways of perceiving the world was really helpful. And also, learning then, of course, I had to learn Spanish. And, when you're young like that, you pick it up easier. And I went into multicultural education as my when I got my master's degree in multicultural education. That when children are 12, before that age, they can actually pick up a whole sound system. So it was really a blessing for me because then I was able later on, I became a bilingual teacher and so forth here in the United States and worked with refugees, especially from Southeast Asia in the 1980s, at which time uh, we were trying to develop an effective way to teach English to our new families and to our children, and to work with teachers to invite them and to welcome these kids from Vietnam and Cambodia who had gone through just horrific wartime experiences. And, this is it's funny how Divine Mother will kind of inform your life. So I did everything I could, every study to find out what are the best ways to teach a second language. And what we found was how do babies first learn their language? It's not by asking them to repeat things, it's by asking them to do. And so it's called total physical response. Come and give mommy a kiss. Oh, thank you. Throw the ball to mommy or throw the ball to your sister. All of those activities, we learned that the children retain 80% greater than if they were given another modality. So we wrote a high intensity language training program, and everything I've ever done has been just it's just been a kind of a mystery how it comes about, but it ended up being very effective, and we became a program that people came to observe. So it was interesting later on when I moved to Ananda and learned about education for life. That education for life is all about giving children experience, making sure they're having fun when they're doing whatever they're doing, exposing them to as many outdoor activities as possible. Really working with cultivating curiosity in our children. And, honestly, I always tell parents this, parents are the first teachers of our children. So your role is so significant in how we then inform and then work as a team with teachers later on. I think so many of us that have had the blessing of sending our children to, at that time it wasn't called Living Wisdom School, it was just called Ananda School with Education for Life values. They're practical. And it's something that, again, as a team, it's not just, okay, here's my child, here's the school, you fix them. It is, how do we work together to really bring out the best? It's interesting, this morning, I read something that I thought was really important, because right now, more than ever, we're trying to really create an environment of peace and harmony. And how do we do that in a world that's really confronted by so many obstacles, so much division, so many things that would suggest, oh, we're in trouble? How do we create that? So someone asked the Dalai Lama, how do you create peace and harmony in our world? And he said, you start by teaching and being an example of compassion to your children. And in doing that, teach them to be kind to the smallest creatures, to notice and see the small things first. And those of us that have had children and worked with children, they see the little things that we don't, that we walk by. And I think that, for people that live in the forest, or I live in the forest, and my, Ananda Village was such a perfect place that so many of the class activities were outside. As much as we can do to bring our children out into nature is such a gift to them. And you watch their faces. You just watch their faces as they respond. Currently, where I live, in the summer, we have horses up here. And I just lost my little dog, Rishi Raj. He was a therapy dog, and really helped me with my elderly mom. I had lived in India after I retired from my directorship of Forest Charter School, which was a personalized learning school in Nevada City. 10 days after my retirement, they sent me to India to help start a school there. But I think that we have to look at how we can be an example. I think that's the first thing. How can we be an example to our children? And that means if you're a godmother, Lisa, I'm thinking of you. If you're a godmother, that's an important role too. And I see that you take it seriously. So I want to tell you a little bit about, because nature is so important, I think, in this whole discussion. In 2013, I had the blessing of being invited to Panama for Jane Goodall. There was a kind of an opening for her I don't know if you remember, she has gone all over the world. She traveled 360 days out of the year with such calm energy. What an example. Calm, always calm energy, but with such passion about how to influence the world in the importance of nature and its animals, its sentient beings. And I was at that time in Laurelwood up in Oregon with Ananda College on the board of directors and also teaching leadership. And I had a student whose name was Swati, and she knew I was going down to Panama to be with Jane. And she said, oh, I have a letter. I love Jane so much. Would you give her this letter? Would you deliver the letter? And I said, absolutely. So when I went down there, we had lunch with Jane at one of our friends' house. There were 8 of us and educators, and actually all of them had at one time or another lived at Ananda. And Bruce and Carol Malner, who are very dear friends, you may know them or know of them. They were, Bruce was the principal at Ananda School and Carol was the junior high teacher. So to this day, and Keith, my son is 42, says Carol was his best teacher of all times. And made everything so fun and delightful. So anyway, Carol and Bruce were down there because they were working with teachers on education for life principles. And so I had an opportunity. I was in the car with Jane. We had lunch with Jane. Then I was in the car with her, and I had that letter from my student. So I said, "Oh, Jane," I said, "this student I have has followed you for years and wanted me to give you her letter." And you know, I handed it to her, and she was, you should have seen her face. She was so alive. She loves young people. She ripped that letter open and she read it at that time. And I was so taken by her presence. She read the letter out loud, and then she said, and you know what? My student told me that she actually hand wrote a letter back to her. So that's the kind of person she is. She told us at lunch that she loved working with the indigenous and she loved working with children. So a lot of her work that for that whole week was with the indigenous population, the Kuna, from that is the north side of Panama. They came, and at that time there was such a division. The cultures were so divided. So the establishment looked down at the indigenous, but when Jane came, that all changed. So it was really a blessing to see her. She'd get up on stage with the Kuna as they were doing their musical presentations, and she would dance with them. At that time, she was 80 and just had the energy, just, and the magnetism and the sweetness and then of course she went into the schools, and I was with her in the schools, and she was so present for each child who would show a project that they were working on, and she would always ask the questions, and she would be just, totally present for them. So I think that experience, and then the fact that, was it a week or 2 weeks ago, she passed away. And it was interesting because she was in Los Angeles and she gave this last interview. She passed away in her sleep. Her heart just stopped at age 91. And so what I guess for us as parents and grandparents and teachers and educators is that our service is never over. We're in it for the long term. And wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and even if you're discouraged, you've got that love and support from this family. And I want to thank Gayatri and her team, because we had to talk about team before we got on, for really providing this forum. And I hope that you'll meet regularly, because it's important that we know we're here with the same intent. How do we create a positive, uplifting environment for our children? So anyway, with that kind of little bit of a background and so forth, I wanted to share with you some things that I think you can do with your children right away. And that is, how do we get them out in nature, and how can we present the kinds of activities that would help them tune into trees and animals and so forth. And you may already know of Joseph Cornell's work, Sharing Nature. Sharing Nature with Children was written by Joseph in 1979. So it's been around a long time. And he has been all over the world. He traveled with, originally with Carol and Bruce Malner, and I mentioned them before. They're real expert nature educators at this point. And in 1986, he went to Japan, and they enthusiastically received his Sharing Nature philosophy, flow learning. Matter of fact, this is the book. If you can see it, Sharing Nature. This is the current book. Originally, it was Sharing Nature with Children, but it's really impacted people now of all ages. So even in Taiwan and South Korea, they are using this with mental health. They're getting their patients, their participants out in nature, and there are 54 activities in this book that they can glean from. So his approach was, how do we approach the learning? And it's with flow learning. These are two essential books, I think. And this is for all of us educators. The reason I loved it, I went to school back in the late 1960s at University of Colorado, where you get this very complicated way of developing goals and objectives when you're creating a lesson, and what's the outcome and so forth. With flow learning, there are just 4 steps, and that is awaken the enthusiasm, focus the attention, give them an experience, and then share the inspiration. And it is, I mean, even now, my husband Bimal and we were invited to a retreat called Pole Star in Hawaii a number of years ago to do a week-long workshop on the art of conscious aging. And honestly, he had taught at university level, and he said, this made our lessons so easy. So I highly recommend looking at it. And the other thing I'm kind of campaigning, I guess, aren't I? But I would say, if you can get on sharingnature.com, there are a lot of free activities on that. And there's a short lesson you can buy. It's not that expensive to look at some of these activities. But more importantly, and this is current, Greg Tremar, whose spiritual name is Sundara, who was really Joseph's protege for 17 years and went all over the world with him as well. He wrote a 9-week online course that is it's excellent. It is absolutely excellent. And if you get on that and decide you want to take it, after every section, there's reflections. So you get to share what your thoughts are with people from all over the world that are taking the course. At the end of the course, you'll end up with all the activities, the handouts, the experiences, because a lot of it's on audio, a lot of it will take you out into nature, and you'll have your AirPods on to do forest bathing, for example. So this is something I think could be really practical, hands-on kinds of thing for you to do now with your kids or your students or with others. So get up on sharingnature.com. It's really simple, and there's a lot on there. In addition to that, you'll get to listen to Joseph. I do newsletters, and if you're interested in being on our Sharing Nature newsletter, please, at the end of this, let Gayatri know, give me your information, and I'll be happy to put you on. We just had, and I had mentioned in 1986 that Joseph went to Japan. At that time, the Japanese adopted Sharing Nature as part of their science curriculum in all schools in Japan. So there are thousands of trainers now in Japan. It's probably the one, of course, it's going on in China, South Korea, Portugal, Spain, all over. But the Japanese have really taken it on. And this past summer in August, there was a group of 22 that came to Ananda Village for a week of Sharing Nature, and they actually wanted meditation too. So we were able to slip in some of that. And of course, that's just a natural part of being out in nature. So anyway, it was very successful. And, it's, and again, a way, how do we all connect in a meaningful way across the globe, and where we really recognize that we're all brothers and sisters. And I think that for you as parents and educators and so forth is, how do we keep our inspiration up? And I think if you recognize that we're all family, and we have the benefit of having this particular spiritual path, but more than that, we want to be expansive. How do we bring our light to everyone? How do we bring our light and as an example to our children? So those are just some of the ideas that I wanted to leave with you. And I also just want to, again, thank you for participating. And again, the more you show up, more I know this is going to be recorded and it'll be on the website. But it's fun to have everybody here live. So, the more you can do that, it'd be great. It's just an hour, and I probably won't even go a whole hour. But I want to open it up now for any questions that you have. And it can be, my anything that I might have gleaned from creating a charter school was a personalized learning school. Incidentally, getting back to Jane, after being with her, we implemented Roots and Shoots, which is her big program for schools, into our school, Forest Charter School, and the kids just took it on. So that's another thing that if you are working with schools, I really encourage you to look into Roots and Shoots program. Any thoughts, any questions, anything you want to add to what I've talked about?
I have so many, Priya, I don't know where to start. But first, let me ask you, when you were talking about learning language, because that's always been a phenomenon for me. You mentioned something called total physical
Response.
What is it?
It's called TPR, total physical response.
Response. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And then I guess just the other thing that I want to say, just that's my feeling, is you talk about Dalai Lama and you've talked about Jane Goodall, but you've also talked a lot about what Ananda's doing in the world, and it just never ceases to amaze me. So many things happen that we never even know about, and you said that we should share the light in all the ways that we can, and it's just really a phenomenal thing in how many different ways Ananda shares the light, and in how many places all over the world. And so I just want to express my gratitude for all of the work that you've done and all of our Ananda family members over these years. And it helps to inspire me, as somebody I would say relatively new on the path, to just continue this work and to really know and understand how important it is, starting in my own home.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that's up to the masters and Swamiji, if I'm a willing instrument, to see where they will take it. But so, yeah, thank you so much.
No, it's really been my joy to do this. And you know how it happens? I'm sure you've noticed this in your lives. Sometimes it just reveals itself. Okay, this is your next step. And I can say that because I have in my astrological chart, I have a lot of Gemini, which is, I could do it this way, or I could do it this way. And I always have to kind of, have this dialogue. But sometimes it's so clear. And that's when Divine Mother is really guiding you. This is your next step. And then how do we bring that to the highest? So just as you said, Hansa, it's just really important to remember that that we bring the light as much as we can bring light in the smallest ways. Going to the grocery store, talking to the clerk, talking to the fellow that just picked up the garbage this morning at our house. It's that kind. It's how do we reflect kindness in everything we do. So I think the other thing, just based on how do we reflect that, there's so many ways through story. And I think reading about the saints is really, has been really, to this day, it has been very informative for me. And it helps me to create my devotion, that bhakti in me, my heart. How do we open our heart more and more? I'm actually just finishing a book called My Heart Will Triumph, and it was about the saint, about the visionaries in Medjugorje, which was Yugoslavia in 1981, and the experience with the Mother Mary. And I'm, again, just so uplifted by it. But any story that you can get on saints, I'll give you an example with my son Keith when he was 9. I was working at Expanding Light, which is the retreat center at Ananda Village, and Mary, whose name now is Maggie, Weber, who ran the boutique, she was able to get a hold of the comic books, 50 comic books of the Mahabharata. So every so every night, and I don't know if Gayatri, if Peter had those or not. You'll have to ask him. But it was like they were really getting around these 50 comic books, telling this incredible epic that, of course, within it is the Bhagavad Gita. And every night, Keith would say, "Mom, are we going to read the Are we going to read Mahabharata?" He couldn't wait to see what was going to happen next. So, in a way, if you think about it, when we do that, it's creating a context for our children as they grow up to say, "Oh, when he's a pilot now, he actually flies the plane for Netflix." But when he was going to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical School, there was a young Indian, he was kind of second generation India, who invited him home. And Keith walked into their home in San Diego and he saw a statue of Ganesha. "Oh," he said, "there's Ganesha." And the mother was, "Wow, here's this Western boy that knows who Ganesha is." So at the table, the conversation was about the Mahabharata. And the parents were just thrilled that some Western boy, he was, of course, college age, would even know what that was. So anyway, there's just all sorts of ways that we can reach our children. And it's fun for us, it's fun for us to do story. And I think Peter, I want to just get back to Peter, Gayatri's husband, because he did, I think it was at SRW, Gayatri, you might want to correct me, but his father, Tim, was also a storyteller, but now Peter's taking that on and he is doing it in a big way. I mean, he's a wonderful storyteller. And Gayatri, are you there? Is he recording any of these, or can they access any of these?
Yeah, so we have on ananda.org/families, we have actually a whole little section of spiritual stories that have been told in Ananda. So there's, a lot of them are from Tim. There's Peter's story that he did for Christmas and Easter. There's some from Jyotish. There's some from Rani. So just these, how are we tuning into the saints and uplifting stories for our children? And something that when Peter started to really tune in and take on sharing the stories, he remembered something his dad shared was when he was preparing, he knew he was ready when he thought of that saint he was about to speak about, that there was tears in his eyes, that he could really totally feel the consciousness and the light of that saint, that he was weeping of joy, tuning into them. That's when he knew, I'm ready and I can communicate to the best of his ability, the vibration of these beautiful souls.
Yeah, thank you.
It's very powerful. Thank you.
So that's a great resource. So it's ananda.org families, I think is what you said, Gayatri, and you probably all know about that. But do get up there. Another person that you'll really want to tap into is Narani from the village, and I think she's taught at Ananda Village for what, 50 years, I don't know, for a long time. She's been there, and she is amazing. When I was in India back in 2009 and 2010, she came over to do some of the training with our teachers, and I mean, she's amazing. She's just a wealth of information. So make sure that I hope we have her information on the website there, or I'm sure some maybe videos of her presentations, but she's great. I wanted to tell one more story, and then I again apologize for lecturing. I didn't, I appreciate any questions and stories that you might have. But I wanted to talk about Swami, because he's the one that really, I mean, if you think about all the things that he brought to the table, which including music and books and philosophy and education for life, and how he supported others to bring it to bring it out to the, to create more about that. But he was always there supporting that. So for me, when I was asked to go to India to help Preeti Isar good friend, start the Dahika Living Wisdom School in Gurgaon. I met with him, and I never forget, because he said, and he wasn't in good health at the end of his life. He said, Priya, he said, I will do anything you tell me what to do. I'll do anything to help support you. And so what I learned from him is he's very much a man of his word. So anyway, I was over there, and it was we were just doing the beginning of the school year and the introductions, and we were in the amphitheater. And the amphitheater of the school had very steep steps that went down to where the dais was, where the presentations were. And I thought, wow, he was going to come, but I thought, no way, he's not well. I mean, everybody knew he wasn't well. And I was up speaking. All of a sudden, I looked up on the road. His car comes by with Jyotish and Devi. They help him out of the car, and he refused help, and he came down those stairs by himself, and there he was to present. And I never forgot that, because again, it came back to, he was a man of his word. He really, I would be amazed that he could get up and do powerful presentations, and then afterwards he'd be depleted. I'd say, how did you do that? He goes, Divine Mother, you would just say, I've been given the energy to do this. This is what I'm to do. So anyway, I just wanted to share that about Swami, because he was such a teacher, such a friend, such a wise, and all that he left us has been just remarkable. Any thoughts? Anything anybody wants to share about their experience? Or
So I'll just add again. Is there somebody else? Go ahead.
I just had a question for you. Something I hear often from devotee parents, how to share and introduce God, and who God is and what God is, and how do we tune in to God with our children. So I'm wondering, in your experience, I think nature is such a bridge to that. What have you learned in your experience with how to work with that and share?
That's a great question, Gayatri. Honestly, nature is a great way for them to feel God, feel the presence. And I think, let me give you an example with my granddaughter, who isn't really supported by some of the family around the topic of God. And so we talk about the mother tree. So I've taken her out, and I said, Kimberly, I said, there is a very powerful, sweet mother tree. We go on this, what I call it, the sacred hike. So there's a little hike up here that has a beautiful view, and you could just feel the vibration of the trees. And I said, let me see if you can find the mother tree. And lo and behold, she found this big, beautiful Jeffrey pine, and she said, that's it. I said, let's go over to it. And I said, I want you to put your hands on the tree, and I want you to smell the tree. So she would do that. So now she's having the experience. What does it smell like to you? Oh, it smells like vanilla or butterscotch. And, again, it's the experience. I said, well, what do you think the tree is trying to tell you? And then let's tune into our hearts. What is your heart trying to tell you? Is there a connection? So those are just some of the things. They don't have to have an answer for anything, but to feel it, that is one way. I think every child, as you know, everybody's unique. Everybody has a different way of responding. But I think giving them the positive experience of how vast and how we're guided. I think, again, with children, telling the story of the saints and those experiences are powerful ways of presenting God, because those saints, think about it. Jesus spoke in parables. He spoke in story. And what are we most interested in is when people tell us stories, and then it has significance. So those are some ideas, and I'm sure others of you have other ideas of how to present that whole concept of God. But I think it's important, the two key things that are important to knowing who God is essentially simple. Love, the heart. So tuning into the heart and love, and just having children put their hands on their heart, feel their heart, breathe into the heart. I'll tell one other little story about my son. So when he was 8, and we lived up in Truckee at that time, we were invited to the family's welcome program at the village. And there were 6 families that came. Haridas and Roma were the leaders at that time, and they had a little girl, Rose, 3 years old. And it was a week long. We camped at the school. And one time, Keith said, he went up to me and he said, "Mom, I want to do the adult meditation," which was going to be an hour meditation. Usually the meditations were 5 minutes for the children. And Keith said, "Mom, I want to do the adult meditation." I said, "Oh, Keith, it's an hour long. You're going to wiggle. It's not, you'll want to move. I don't think so." So then he goes to Haridas. He says, "Haridas, could I do the adult meditation?" Haridas says the same thing. "No, it's long. You're going to wiggle. It's going to, it's going to be uncomfortable." So then he goes to Roma, and Roma says, "Oh, of course you can do the adult meditation." So he sat next to me for a whole hour in absolute peaceful silence. Didn't wiggle. I probably wiggled before he did. And we went back to our tent afterwards, and he said, "Mom, I saw all this light." I went, "Oh my gosh, he's had an experience." And I said, never forget this moment, because you'll know, and there'll be times when you feel alone. You're never alone, because God is with you.
So I'm curious, Priya, has he taken any of this experience growing up in Ananda? Has he brought it into his adult life?
I don't think he has in the way that I thought he would, like Peter has. He's out in the world. I think once he got into aviation, it's a very materialistic, worldly life. And his master says, environment stronger than will. So, he's, and I think that when I was with him last time, I reminded him, we did do a heart meditation together, and his wife, who's from New York, and she's a director at Apple, she's a go-getter, but when I opened my eyes, I found she was sitting on the floor doing the meditation with us. So it's a reminder, of course. I think that what he has been able to bring back from 9 years being raised at Ananda is his ability to work so well with people. Everyone loves him. He's great with people. I remember when he was hired by Netflix, I heard through the grapevine that the human resources person said, "We need to find more Keiths." Now, why was that? I'm sure it was because he had this incredible upbringing at Ananda. Yeah, but a good question, Hans. Yeah.
And I wouldn't doubt for 1 minute that he's carrying that vibration with him, in him, and everywhere he goes.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Any other thoughts? I think we're kind of coming to the end of our time together, and I want to make sure people have had a time to tap in ways that they want.
Hello. I'm currently in the car, so there might be some background noise. But I'm not yet a parent, but I'm considering, embarking on the journey of trying to have a baby and raise a child. And I'm wondering, how does your experience with education and nature fit into the sort of prepping phases, how can tuning into nature help us with preparing to welcome a soul into our family?
Oh gosh, Ivara, that's a great question. And it's one that I love because, you know, I- I'm a nature person, obviously, and I would say that find your favorite tree. Go sit under that tree. Invite, if you, there's a wonderful book out called by Suzanne Senard called Finding the Mother Tree. And if you can get the audio version of it, it's great. She's Canadian. She has that kind of corny Canadian humor, which is fun. It's a very fun book to listen to, but she's a scientist. And they're finding that these trees have this very intricate communication system through the roots. And and how important diversity is. But what I think's happening with these sentient beings, I'm working with horses right now and so forth, is they have a gift to share with us. And I think as we evolve into a higher yoga or higher consciousness, that we're going to be able to tap into that more. Well, now's the time to begin. We know how to do it. So, go and, find your favorite path, find your favorite tree and sit under the tree. Matter of fact, I'll get back to, if you can take the course, sharing the 9-week Sharing Nature course that's online, sharingnature.com, it will actually walk you through some of these experiences. And that will set the stage for you. So anyway, and that, for me, I do it in the summer. We're in the shoulder season right now, so it's fall. All the colors are changing up here. We live up at 6,700 feet in Truckee, and in the winter now, take my cross country skis out and I go off. And when you cross country ski, you're out there by yourself. And I find my favorite trees and I talk to them. I know it sounds crazy, but I know that there is a heart connection.
It's funny that you say that because just recently there's been a ginkgo tree on the land that I live on that it's perfectly placed that at the end of my meditation, when I open my eyes, I see the masters and then I see this ginkgo tree. And of course it's changing color and it's so, becoming this vibrant, bright orange and yellow, and it's still a bit green. It's just so beautiful. And I feel like every day it's been saying, I'm here and I'm with you. And so, yeah, this message has come at a great time. Thank you, Priya.
Very good. Very good. Thanks for sharing that, Ivara. Good question. Anything else?
So I just want to say thank you, and I'm really, really grateful. And I don't feel like you were lecturing at all. And the whole idea of having you was was for you to share all of your experience. And thank you so much for all of the resources that you've given us that we're going to have to pull out so that we can post them.
Don't forget that one. The Sky and the Earth Touched Me. That's a great one from Joseph. Oh, there was one more. Oh, I can't find it. Well, anyway, you'll find them online.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. There was another book mentioned whilst I was driving that I could write down. And now I forget the name.
So The Sky and the Earth Touched Me.
Yeah.
Flow Learning. This is great. This is a great book. I've used that a lot. And then the latest Sharing Nature book.
Oh, perfect.
But honestly, all these activities are on the course. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Priya, for joining us. It's been a real treat.
It's been a joy for me. So nice meeting all of you. And again, I hope we can connect at another time.
Thank you, Priya.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, God bless you all.